The stars shimmered like scattered diamonds against the void of space. On the bridge of the Zenith Collective's scout ship Eternal Truth, first observer Kexri stared at his sensor readings for the third time. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep confusion among his species. "High Scholar, you need to see this," he called out, his voice trembling slightly. "The primitive human vessel is doing something impossible." High Scholar Vesna floated across the bridge on her gravity disk, her crystalline form catching the starlight. She had expected this mission to be routine. Observe the newly spacefaring humans, document their primitive technology, and move on. Instead, she found herself watching something that defied explanation. The human ship, a relatively small vessel called the U.S. Starweaver, hung in space about 10,000 kilometers away. Commander Robert Nash sat in his captain's chair, unaware of the alien observers. To him, this was just another test run of humanity's newest drive system. "Engineering, are we ready for the jump?" Nash's voice was steady, practiced. He'd done this 100 times in simulations, but this was their first real space test. "All systems green, Commander." Chief Engineer Linda Moore reported from below decks. "Reality manipulation drive is charged to full capacity. We can bend space-time on your mark." Back on the Eternal Truth, the aliens' advanced sensors recorded everything. Their civilization had mastered faster than light travel centuries ago, but they did it by sliding between the spaces in reality. What they were about to witness was something entirely different. "All hands, brace for reality shift," Nash announced. His fingers pressed the activation sequence on his chair's control panel. "Executing jump in 3, 2, 1. The space around the Starweaver began to ripple like the surface of a pond. High Scholar Vesna's instruments screamed warnings as fundamental physics equations started returning impossible results. The human ship wasn't moving through space. It was moving space itself. "By the first light," Kexri whispered, "they're breaking reality." The Starweaver seemed to stretch like rubber, then snap back into shape. The space around it folded like origami, creating patterns that shouldn't exist in 3-dimensional space. Warning alarms blared across the alien vessel as their sensors tried to process what they were seeing. Commander Nash felt the familiar sensation of reality bending around the ship. To the crew, it felt like being in an elevator that moved in all directions at once, while somehow staying perfectly still. Through the viewports, they could see space itself twisting into new shapes. "Drive is performing within expected parameters," Linda reported, her eyes fixed on the engineering displays. "Reality cohesion holding at 94%. Better than in the simulations." The Starweaver vanished with a flash of light that didn't behave like light should. It reappeared instantly, 50 million kilometers away, leaving behind ripples in the fabric of space-time that slowly faded like rings in water. On the Eternal Truth, High Scholar Vesna's crystalline form had taken on a pale, sickly hue, a sign of extreme distress in her species. "Send all sensor data to the collective immediately," she ordered. "Priority signal." Add my personal note. The humans aren't just manipulating space. They're rewriting the laws of physics themselves. The alien ship's quantum computers worked overtime, processing what they'd just witnessed. According to every known law of physics, what the humans had just done was completely impossible. Yet they'd done it anyway, as casually as someone might drive a ground car. Back on the Starweaver, Commander Nash allowed himself a small smile. "Position confirmed. We're exactly where we planned to be. Good work, everyone." "Commander," his science officer, Jane Porter, called out from her station. "I'm picking up some unusual readings. There might have been another ship observing us during the jump." Nash frowned. "Hostile?" "No, sir, but they're gone now. Whatever it was, it left in a hurry right after our jump." The commander made a note in his log but wasn't too concerned. The reality manipulation drive had worked perfectly, and that was what mattered. Humanity had just taken its first real step into a much larger universe. Meanwhile, Across the galaxy, the Zenith Collective's highest council was being awakened from their meditation chambers. The sensor data from the Eternal Truth had caused an unprecedented emergency session. The most advanced civilization in known space gathered to discuss a terrifying question. What do you do when a primitive species casually breaks the laws of physics? High Scholar Vesna's report was clear. The humans have developed technology that should not be possible. They are not working within reality's rules. They are forcing reality to work within their rules. The implications are devastating. In her private thoughts, which she would add to her personal log later, she noted something even more disturbing. They didn't even seem to realize what they were doing. To them, it was routine. Just another day of making the impossible possible. What else will they do, these reality-breaking humans, when they finally reach the stars in force? And more importantly, what will reality do in response? Commander Nash's log entry was much simpler. First real space test of the reality manipulation drive successful. Minor anomalies detected, but nothing significant. Humanity is ready to take its place among the stars. He had no way of knowing that across the galaxy, advanced civilizations were already beginning to panic about humanity's arrival on the galactic stage. To them, humanity wasn't just a new spacefaring species. They were an existential terror, casually breaking the laws that held the universe together. As the Starweaver began its journey back to Earth, reality itself seemed to shiver in its wake. The laws of physics had been broken, and like any broken law, there would be consequences. The only question was, who would pay the price? The ripples from this first contact would soon become waves, and those waves would reshape the galaxy in ways that neither humans nor aliens could predict. Humanity had proven they could break reality, but they had yet to learn why reality had those rules in the first place. On Earth, in the top-secret facility where the reality manipulation drive was developed, a junior physicist named Alan Cooper was about to notice something strange in his calculations. The space where the Starweaver had performed its jump was different. Subtly, almost imperceptibly, but different nonetheless. The universal constants weren't quite constant anymore. But that discovery and its terrifying implications would have to wait for another day. For now, humanity celebrated its triumph, blissfully unaware that they had just taken the first step toward either transcendence or destruction. Only time would tell which path they had chosen. Captain Diana Wright stood at the observation deck of the U.S. Lightbender, watching Earth grow smaller in the distance. 3 other ships of humanity's experimental fleet floated nearby. The Starweaver, the Reality Dancer, and the Quantum Dream. Each ship carried the revolutionary reality manipulation drive that had thrown the galaxy's advanced civilizations into panic just weeks ago. Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Fleet Command. Lieutenant Frank Harris called from his communication station. The Zenith Collective is sending a diplomatic vessel to meet us. They're requesting information about our drive technology. Diana smiled slightly. The aliens had gone from ignoring humanity to desperate for answers in record time. Acknowledge their request, Lieutenant, but remind them that our technology specifications remain classified. The Lightbender's bridge hummed with activity as the crew prepared for their first official demonstration. Unlike the Starweaver's accidental first contact, this meeting was planned. The aliens would finally see what humanity's fleet could do, whether they were ready for it or not. Engineering reports all systems ready, Chief Engineer Ryan Peters announced. Reality manipulation drive is charged and stable. Better than stable, actually. The drive seems to be adapting. Diana turned to face him. Adapting. Explain. It's like it's learning, Captain. Each jump we make gets smoother, as if reality itself is getting used to being bent. In the depths of the Lightbender's engineering section, the reality manipulation drive pulsed with a soft blue light. The device looked deceptively simple, a spherical chamber filled with shifting patterns of light and energy. But inside that sphere, the laws of physics were being rewritten on a fundamental level. The discovery had been accidental. 5 years ago, at a small research facility in Nevada, Dr. Susan Carter had been working on quantum transportation theory when she noticed something odd. The quantum particles she was studying weren't just ignoring the laws of physics, they were changing them. "Zenith vessel approaching, Captain," announced Lieutenant Carol Martinez from Tactical. "Their ship is massive." The alien diplomatic vessel emerged from what looked like a tear in space. It was easily 10 times the size of the Lightbender, its crystalline structure catching and refracting starlight in beautiful patterns. "Open a channel," Diana ordered. "Let's welcome our guests." The main view screen lit up with the image of High Scholar Vesna, her crystalline form now a deep blue color indicating formal diplomatic status. Behind her stood a group of other alien officials, all trying to hide their obvious anxiety. "Greetings, Captain Wright." Vesna's translated voice came through clearly. "We are eager to understand your technology. Our sensors indicate that your drive systems operate on principles we believe to be impossible." Diana maintained a professional smile. "That's why we're here today, High Scholar, to demonstrate that the impossible is just a temporary inconvenience for humanity. All ships, prepare for synchronized jump on my mark." The alien observers watched intently as the 4 human ships moved into formation. What they were about to witness would change their understanding of the universe forever. "All ships report ready, Captain," Frank announced. "Very well. Begin the demonstration. Execute Pattern Alpha 3. The 4 ships activated their drives simultaneously. Space around them didn't just bend. It shattered and reformed like broken glass, putting itself back together. The ships moved in perfect synchronization, each one creating its own reality distortion that merged with the others. On the Zenith vessel, alarms blared as their sensors struggled to process what they were seeing. The human ships were dancing through space, leaving trails of altered physics in their wake. They moved in ways that should have torn them apart, but instead, reality itself seemed to adapt to accommodate them. "Impossible," one of the alien scientists whispered. "They're not just breaking physics, they're making physics break itself." The demonstration continued for several minutes. The human ships performed maneuvers that made the aliens' most advanced calculations meaningless. They moved backwards in time by fractions of a second, existed in multiple places at once, and at one point seemed to turn the space around them inside out. When it was over, High Scholar Vesna's color had shifted to a pale green of deep concern. "Captain Wright," she said slowly, "do you understand what your ships are doing to the fabric of reality?" Diana's expression remained confident. "We understand enough to control it, High Scholar. The rest, well, that's what exploration is for, isn't it?" Back in engineering, Ryan was studying the drive readings with growing excitement. "Captain, you need to see this," he called over the comm. "The drive efficiency has improved by another 15% during the demonstration. It's like reality is learning to work with us instead of against us." The Zenith officials heard this exchange, and their anxiety visibly increased. One of their senior scientists stepped forward. "Please," he said, "you must stop these experiments. The fundamental constants of the universe are not meant to be flexible." "That's where you're wrong," Diana replied calmly. "We're not making them flexible. We're discovering that they always were. Humanity just happened to be the first to notice and take advantage of it." As if to emphasize her point, the reality manipulation drive pulsed again, sending ripples through space-time that the alien sensors registered as mathematically impossible. The demonstration had achieved its purpose. The Zenith Collective now understood that humanity wasn't just another emerging spacefaring race. They were something entirely new. A species that looked at the laws of physics not as absolute rules, but as guidelines to be rewritten. As the alien ship prepared to depart, High Scholar Vesna sent one final message. "You are playing with forces you don't fully understand, Captain Wright. The universe has rules for a reason." Diana's response was characteristically human. "Then perhaps it's time for some new rules." After the Zenith vessel disappeared, Diana recorded in her log, "First official demonstration completed. Alien reaction as expected. A mixture of terror and fascination. They don't understand yet that this is just the beginning. Humanity isn't going to just join the galactic community. We're going to revolutionize it. What she didn't record, what none of them could know yet, was that reality itself was already beginning to change in response to humanity's innovations. In the spaces where their ships had jumped, the laws of physics were becoming more suggestive than absolute. The universe was adapting to accommodate humanity's impossible ships, and no one could predict what that meant for the future. As the fleet prepared to return to Earth, Lieutenant Martinez noticed something strange on her sensors. A tiny area of space where light seemed to move just a little bit faster than it should. But she dismissed it as a sensor glitch, not realizing she had just witnessed the first sign of what was to come. The physics-defying fleet had made its statement to the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and they brought with them not just new technology, but a new way of thinking about reality itself. The universe would never be the same, for better or worse. Chief Engineer Kevin Peters stared at his computer screen in the dimly lit engineering lab of the U.S. Lightbender. The numbers didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. But there they were, plain as day. The reality manipulation drive wasn't just bending space-time anymore. It was leaving permanent marks on the fabric of reality. "Computer, run the analysis again," he said, rubbing his tired eyes. It was 3 a.m. ship time, but he couldn't sleep. Not after what he discovered. The computer beeped softly. Analysis complete. Results unchanged. Reality coherence in jump zones shows continuing degradation pattern. In the ship's observation lounge, Lieutenant Amy Foster was dealing with her own strange discoveries. She watched as her coffee cup slowly slid across the table, upward, against gravity. It wasn't the first impossible thing she'd seen this week. "Control, this is Lieutenant Foster," she spoke into her communicator. "We've got another anomaly in Observation Lounge 2. And this time, I've got video." The coffee cup reached the ceiling and stayed there, completely ignoring the artificial gravity that kept everyone else firmly on the floor. Amy pulled out her scanner and began taking readings, just as she'd done with the other incidents. Captain Diana Wright called an emergency meeting 2 hours later. The ship's senior staff gathered in the conference room, all looking tired but alert. The coffee cup, now behaving normally again, sat in the center of the table as evidence. "Report," Diana ordered, looking at Kevin first. Kevin stood and activated the room's holographic display. "Captain, every time we use the reality manipulation drive, we leave behind what I'm calling reality tears. Think of them like scars in space-time. At first, they were microscopic and temporary. But they're getting bigger, and they're not healing anymore. And these tears," Diana gestured to the coffee cup, "they're causing the strange phenomena we've been seeing." "Yes, Mom. The laws of physics are becoming unreliable near our flight paths. Conservation of energy, gravity, even the speed of light. They're all becoming variable in these areas." Lieutenant Foster pulled up her own data. "We've recorded 27 separate incidents in the past week alone. Objects moving against gravity, time flowing backwards in small pockets, quantum effects becoming visible to the naked eye. It's like reality itself is starting to unravel." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's greatest technological achievement might be slowly destroying the universe's operating system. "There's more," Kevin added quietly. "The tears are spreading. Each one is acting like a seed point for further reality breakdown. If this continues," he trailed off, not wanting to finish the thought. "If this continues, what?" Diana pressed. "If this continues, we might reach a critical point where the fundamental constants of the universe become permanently unstable. Physics itself could break down on a massive scale." Just then, the ship's communication system crackled to life. "Captain," Lieutenant Frank Harris' voice came through. "We're receiving an emergency broadcast from the Zenith Collective. They're calling for an immediate halt to all reality manipulation drive operations. Diana switched on the main screen. The message was being broadcast on all frequencies, in all known languages. High Scholar Vesna's crystalline form had taken on a deep red color, a sign of extreme emergency among her kind. To all human vessels, the message played, "Your reality manipulation technology is causing catastrophic damage to the fabric of spacetime. We have detected growing zones of physics instability throughout traveled space. If these drives continue to operate, the damage may become irreversible. The Galactic Council demands an immediate cessation of all reality-altering operations." As if to emphasize the point, the coffee cup on the conference table suddenly multiplied into 3 identical copies, then merged back into one. Several officers jumped back in surprise. "It's getting worse," Amy noted, scanning the cup. "The reality tiers are becoming more active. They're not just affecting physical laws anymore. They're starting to affect probability and causality." Kevin pulled up a new set of readings. "Captain, look at this. The tiers aren't just spreading through space, they're spreading through time as well. We're finding evidence of reality distortion both before and after our jumps, as if the damage is traveling backward and forward through time simultaneously." Diana stood and walked to the window, watching the stars. Except now, some of them seemed to flicker in impossible patterns, as if the very constants that governed their light were becoming unstable. "Options?" she asked, not turning around. "We could shut down the drives," Kevin suggested. "But even that might not be enough. The tiers are self-sustaining now. They're feeding on the energy of spacetime itself. And if we do nothing..." Amy brought up a simulation on the main screen. It showed the spread of reality tiers across known space, growing like cracks in glass. Best case scenario: physics becomes unpredictable in growing regions of space. Worst case: the fundamental forces that hold atoms together become unreliable. That would be bad. The ship suddenly shuddered, and for a brief moment, everyone in the room saw themselves sitting at the table twice, like a double exposure photograph. Then reality snapped back to normal, leaving everyone shaken. "What was that?" Diana demanded. "Timeline overlap," Kevin explained, checking his instruments. For a second there, 2 slightly different versions of reality tried to exist in the same space. "It's starting to happen more frequently." Diana returned to her seat, her expression grave. "Send a message to Fleet Command. We need to inform Earth about what's happening, and prepare a detailed report for the Zenith Collective. They deserve to know exactly what they're dealing with." As the senior staff filed out, Amy stayed behind, watching the coffee cup carefully. For just a moment, she could have sworn she saw it exist in all possible positions on the table simultaneously, before settling back into normal spacetime. In his private lab, Kevin added a final note to his research log. "We thought we were just bending the rules of reality. Instead, we may have broken them completely. The question now isn't whether we can fix it. It's whether reality itself will survive our attempt to rewrite its laws." The U.S. Lightbender continued its patrol route, but now every crew member watched the stars with new eyes, wondering if each point of light would still follow the same laws of physics tomorrow that it did today. Humanity had wanted to make its mark on the universe. Instead, they might have unmade the universe itself. In the darkness between stars, reality continued to crack, one tiny tear at a time. The ripples were becoming waves, and the waves were about to become a flood that could wash away everything humanity thought they knew about the nature of existence itself. The grand meeting hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 57 spacefaring civilizations had gathered for an emergency session. Their topic: the humans and their reality-breaking ships. High Scholar Vesna stood at the center podium, her crystalline form glowing with urgent red pulses. Behind her, a massive screen showed the spreading reality tiers across mapped space, looking like cracks in a massive window. "The situation is worse than we feared," she announced to the assembled aliens. "The humans' reality manipulation drive isn't just damaging spacetime. It's causing the fundamental laws of physics to unravel. We must act now. Meanwhile, aboard the US Starweaver, acting Captain Michelle Rodriguez faced her own crisis. The ship's original commander had vanished during their last jump, literally vanished, along with a chunk of the bridge that had somehow decided to exist yesterday instead of today. "Status report," Michelle ordered, trying to keep her voice steady. The bridge crew looked exhausted. Nobody had slept well since the physics anomalies started getting worse. Lieutenant Ben Cooper at the science station spoke up. "Captain, the reality tiers are spreading faster than our models predicted. We're tracking new anomalies forming in areas we've never even visited." "Show me," Michelle said. The main screen lit up with a map of nearby space. Red dots marked the locations of reality tiers, and they were multiplying like bacteria in a petri dish. Worse, the tiers were starting to merge, creating larger zones where physics simply didn't work properly anymore. "Message coming in from Fleet Command," announced Communications Officer Lisa Brown. "Priority 1. The screen switched to show Admiral John Carter's grim face. "Captain Rodriguez, we've just received an ultimatum from the Galactic Council. All ships with reality manipulation drives must cease operations immediately, or Earth will face total isolation from galactic society." Michelle frowned. "With all due respect, Admiral, that's not our biggest problem right now. The tiers are becoming self-sustaining. Shutting down the drives might not be enough anymore." As if to prove her point, a reality tear formed right on the bridge. For a few seconds, everyone watched as a coffee mug passed through its own solid surface, existed at multiple points in time simultaneously, and then resolved itself into a small potted plant. "We're seeing similar events all over explored space," Ben reported. "The laws of physics are becoming optional, and it's getting worse exponentially." Back at the Galactic Council, the debate had turned heated. The Zinri delegation, a species of energy beings, was particularly upset. "These humans must be stopped." Their representative flickered angrily. "Their ships are corrupting the very foundation of reality. Already, we have lost 3 colonial outposts to zones where our energy forms cannot maintain stability." High Scholar Vesna raised her appendages for quiet. "We have just received new data from our long-range sensors. The reality tiers are not just spreading, they're evolving. Each new tier seems to operate under slightly different physical laws. The universe is trying to adapt to the damage, but in doing so, it's becoming increasingly unstable." On the Starweaver, Michelle was reaching a similar conclusion. She stood in engineering, watching as Chief Engineer Peter Wilson tried to make sense of their drive readings. "Look at this," Peter pointed to a complex diagram. "The reality manipulation drive doesn't just bend space-time anymore. It's like reality itself is learning from what we've done. Each tear creates new rules, new physics, but the rules aren't consistent." "Can we fix it?" Michelle asked. Peter's expression was grim. "Fix it? Captain, we'd have to understand it first. We're dealing with forces that might be beyond human comprehension. The universe has rules for a reason. We broke those rules, and now reality itself is trying to figure out how to work without them." The ship's sensors suddenly screamed warnings. A massive reality tear was forming directly in their path. Through the view screen, the crew watched in horror as space itself seemed to fold inside out. "Evasive maneuvers," Michelle ordered. But before they could move, the tear expanded. For a moment, everyone on the bridge experienced being in 5 different places at once. Some saw possible futures, others remembered things that hadn't happened yet. Time and space became suggestions rather than laws. When reality stabilized again, Lisa checked her instruments and gasped. "Captain, according to our readings, we just existed in 3 different time periods simultaneously. And I think we may have accidentally erased Tuesday." "All of Tuesday?" Michelle asked. "All of them, past and future. At least in this sector of space." The implications were staggering. Humanity's attempts to bend reality had started a chain reaction that was now threatening the very fabric of existence. The universe was trying to adapt to their impossible technology, but in doing so, it was rewriting its own rules in increasingly chaotic ways. At the Galactic Council, the final vote was unanimous. High Scholar Vesna delivered their decision. Until the reality tear crisis is resolved, all human ships must remain in their home system. Any human vessel attempting to use their reality manipulation drive will be considered a threat to universal existence and dealt with accordingly. The message reached the Starweaver just as another reality tear formed nearby. This one caused a small section of space to briefly operate under completely different mathematical principles. The crew watched as pi briefly became exactly 3, causing all nearby circular objects to distort alarmingly before snapping back to normal. Michelle made her decision. Send a message to Fleet Command. The tears are becoming self-propagating. If we don't find a way to stabilize them soon, we might reach a point where reality itself breaks down completely. Peter spoke up from his station. Captain, I'm detecting something even stranger. The tears, they're not just affecting space and time. They're affecting probability itself. Events that should be impossible are becoming possible. The difference between can't and won't is starting to blur. Just then, every computer screen on the bridge displayed the same message simultaneously. Error. Universe.x has encountered an unexpected paradox. Reality reboot required. The message vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving the crew staring at each other in stunned silence. They had wanted to rewrite the rules of physics. Instead, they might have broken reality's operating system entirely. Michelle recorded in her log, Day 45 of the reality tear crisis. We've lost contact with 3 outlying colonies, not because of communication failure, but because the regions of space they occupied have begun operating under incompatible laws of physics. Earth's scientists are working around the clock to find a solution, but we might have already passed the point of no return. The universe is changing, and we're the ones who changed it. The question now is, will there be a universe left when this is over? As she finished her log entry, Michelle watched a reality tear form and disappear near the ship. For a brief moment, she saw all possible versions of herself, in all possible universes, all trying to fix the same problem they had created. The sight would have driven her mad if it had lasted more than a second. The universe had rules. Humanity broke them. Now everyone, human and alien alike, had to deal with the consequences of a reality that no longer played by its own rules. Chief Science Officer Paul Harrison sat in his lab aboard the U.S. Lightbender, surrounded by holographic displays showing the spreading reality tears. Dark circles under his eyes showed he hadn't slept in days. He wasn't alone. Most of the science team looked like zombies, running on coffee and fear. Computer, run simulation 247 again, he said, rubbing his temples. Focus on the interaction between overlapping reality tiers. The main screen lit up with a complex pattern of spreading cracks in spacetime. As Paul watched, the tiers grew, merged, and created new patterns that shouldn't be possible. But the simulation wasn't what scared him most. It was how closely it matched what they were actually seeing in space. Dr. Harrison to the bridge. Immediately, Captain Diana Wright's voice came over the intercom. Something in her tone made Paul run to the elevator. When he reached the bridge, he understood why. Through the main view screen, he could see a massive reality tear forming. But this one was different. It wasn't just breaking physics, it was rewriting it. What am I looking at? Diana asked as Paul studied the readings. Something new, he answered, his voice tight. The tears aren't just damaging reality anymore. They're forcing the universe to create new rules to accommodate our technology. It's like reality is trying to update its own programming. Lieutenant Stephen Clark burst onto the bridge, holding a datapad. Captain, you need to see this. I found something in the ancient star maps we got from the Zenith Collective. Diana nodded for him to continue. Stephen pulled up a series of images on the main screen. Look at these regions of space. He pointed to several areas marked in alien writing. The collective's oldest records show that these sectors used to operate under completely different physical laws. Not just slightly different, fundamentally different. Paul's eyes widened as he looked at the data. Are you saying this has happened before? Maybe not exactly like this, Stephen explained. But there are entire regions of space where physics just works differently, and some of these changes date back millions of years. On the screen, the massive reality tear continued to grow. Inside it, they could see space itself trying to reshape according to new rules. Light moved at different speeds, gravity worked backwards, and time flowed like water finding new paths. Message from engineering. The comm system crackled. The reality manipulation drive is acting strange. It's resonating with the tear somehow. Diana turned to Paul. Explain. I think I understand now, he said slowly. Our ships didn't just break physics. They forced the universe to accept that its rules could be broken. And now reality itself is trying to evolve, to create new rules that can accommodate what we've done. Just then, every instrument on the bridge went crazy. The reality tear had grown large enough to engulf several star systems. Inside the affected zone, physics itself was being rewritten on a fundamental level. Look, Stephen pointed at his scanner. The tear is creating its own constants, new laws of physics, completely different from what we know, but internally consistent. Paul rushed to his station, fingers flying over the controls. He's right. It's like watching evolution happen, but with physical laws instead of living things. The universe is learning to adapt to our impossible technology. Diana watched as stars within the affected zone changed color, their nuclear fusion now operating under new rules. Can we stop it? Stop it! Paul laughed, a slightly hysterical edge to his voice. Captain, I'm not sure we should stop it. This might be the universe's way of preventing total collapse, by rewriting its own rules to make our technology possible. The ship shuddered as another reality tear formed nearby. Through the view screen, they watched as it merged with the larger tear, creating patterns in space-time that hurt to look at. New data coming in from the Zenith Collective, Stephen announced. They've detected similar phenomena in 12 different sectors. The changes are spreading faster than anyone predicted. Paul studied the incoming data, his face growing pale. Captain, this is worse than we thought. The new physics. It's not staying contained. It's spreading, infecting normal space like a virus. Every time our drives create a new tear, we're giving reality more examples of how physics could work differently. Diana stood at the center of her bridge, watching as the universe tried to rewrite itself around them. Options. We could shut down all reality manipulation drives, Paul suggested. But at this point, I'm not sure it would help. The process has become self-sustaining. Reality itself is trying to solve the problem we created. Stephen looked up from his station. Captain, I'm detecting something strange in the ship's database. Files that were written yesterday now contain information about events that haven't happened yet. It's like causality itself is breaking down. The main screen suddenly showed multiple versions of the same view, each operating under slightly different physical laws. In one, light moved like water. In another, gravity pulled sideways. The universe was trying different solutions, testing new rules like a computer running through possibilities. Engineering to bridge. The panic in the engineer's voice was clear. The reality manipulation drive is changing. The physical structure of the device is evolving on its own. Paul rushed to examine the data. This is incredible. The drive isn't just affecting reality anymore. Reality is changing the drive. It's like the universe is trying to create technology that makes sense under its own laws. Diana watched as another set of stars changed color, their fundamental properties shifting to match new physical constants. How far will this spread? Based on current projections, Paul shook his head. It could rewrite physics throughout the entire galaxy. Maybe the whole universe, What we're seeing isn't just change, it's evolution. The universe is literally learning how to be a different kind of universe. The ship's computer suddenly spoke in multiple voices simultaneously. Warning: universal constants becoming variable. Reality cohesion at 47% and falling. Causality violations detected in all sectors. Stephen checked his readings again. Captain, the ancient anomalies I found, they're starting to make sense now. Those weren't just random areas where physics worked differently. They were scars from the last time something like this happened. The universe has been through this before. Paul looked at his own data and nodded slowly. He's right. We're not the first civilization to break reality. We're just the latest. And each time it happens, the universe learns and adapts a little more. Diana sat in her captain's chair, watching as reality itself tried to evolve around them. Send all this data to Fleet Command and prepare a message for the Zenith Collective. They need to know what's really happening here. As the crew worked, none of them noticed that the reality manipulation drive had started to pulse in perfect sync with the reality tiers. The universe wasn't just changing anymore, it was changing with purpose. The question was, what would reality look like when it finished evolving? Captain Diana Wright stood in the combined command center of Earth's space control, surrounded by representatives from 30 alien species. The room buzzed with tension as holographic displays showed reality tiers spreading across the galaxy like cracks in a windshield. We have less than 48 hours, Chief Science Officer Paul Harrison announced to the gathered crowd. After that, the tiers will reach critical mass. Reality itself will try to reboot, and none of our models can predict what happens then. High Scholar Vesna's crystalline form pulsed with worried colors. Then we are doomed. The universe will unravel because of human arrogance. Diana stepped forward. No, we have a plan, but we'll need help from everyone here. The plan had come from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Amy Foster had been watching the reality tiers, studying how they merged and changed. She noticed something nobody else had. The tiers weren't random. They followed patterns, like water finding the easiest path downhill. The tiers are trying to create stability, Amy explained to the assembled aliens. Each one is an attempt by the universe to write new rules that make sense. We're not destroying reality. We're forcing it to evolve. And we can guide that evolution. Paul took over the explanation, pointing to a complex diagram. We propose creating a controlled reality breach. The big one. But instead of letting it grow randomly, we'll use our reality manipulation drives to shape it, guide it, help reality find new rules that work for everyone. The alien representatives murmured among themselves. What the humans suggested was either brilliant or suicidal. Maybe both. And if you fail? Vesna asked. Then reality breaks completely, Diana answered honestly. But it's going to break anyway if we do nothing. At least this way we have a chance. The plan required precise coordination. Every ship with a reality manipulation drive would gather at a carefully chosen point in space. They would create the biggest reality tear ever made. But this time they would work together to shape it, guide it, help the universe find new rules that could accommodate both the old physics and humanity's impossible technology. 12 hours later, the fleet assembled. 27 human ships formed a perfect circle in space. Around them, ships from other species waited nervously, ready to help or run, depending on what happened next. All ships reporting ready, Lieutenant Frank Harris announced from his communication station. The U.S. Lightbender had been chosen as the command ship for the operation. Diana took a deep breath. Begin power-up sequence. Remember, everyone, we're not fighting reality anymore. We're helping it evolve. Work with the tiers, not against them. The reality manipulation drives hummed to life across the fleet. In engineering, Chief Engineer Ryan Peters watched in amazement as the drive began to pulse in new patterns. The drive is changing again, he reported. It's like it knows what we're trying to do. It's adapting itself to help us. In the center of the ship circle, space began to twist. The largest reality tear ever created formed, its edges rippling with impossible colors. Inside it, physics itself waited to be reshaped. "All ships, begin the sequence," Diana ordered. "Just like we practiced. Help reality find its new shape." The ships moved in perfect coordination, their drives working together to guide the tear's growth. Instead of fighting the changes, they embraced them, helping the universe test new rules until it found ones that worked. On the bridge of the Lightbender, Amy watched her instruments in wonder. It's working. The tear isn't just growing, it's stabilizing, creating new constants that make sense. Paul studied his own readings intensely. The new physics, they're beautiful. Different from what we knew, but still logical, still consistent. The universe is learning to bend instead of break. Hour after hour, the ships worked. The reality tear grew larger, but now it wasn't chaotic. It was purposeful, organized, creating new rules that could accommodate both the old laws of physics and humanity's reality-bending technology. Incoming message from the Zenith Collective, Frank announced. They say the other tiers are stabilizing. The new physics are spreading, but smoothly now. No more chaos. Diana watched through the view screen as space itself changed around them. Stars still shone, but some of them pulsed with new rhythms. Light still traveled, but it had learned new ways to move. Gravity still pulled, but it had become more flexible about how it worked. "Final phase," she ordered. "All ships, prepare to stabilize the new constants." The fleet moved again, their drives pulsing in harmony. The massive reality tear stopped growing and began to settle, its edges becoming firm and stable. The universe had found its new rules. "It's done," Paul announced, his voice filled with awe. "The new physics, they're holding. Reality isn't breaking anymore. It's evolved." Across the galaxy, the chaos of the reality tiers subsided. In their place, a new kind of universe emerged, one where the impossible was merely improbable, where the laws of physics were more like guidelines than absolute rules. High Scholar Vesna's voice came over the comm. "You did it, though I must admit, the universe feels different now." "It is different," Diana replied. "But it's still here, still working, just more flexible than before." In the days that followed, scientists from every species worked to understand the new physics. They discovered that reality had indeed evolved. The universe now operated under rules that were more complex but more adaptable than before. The reality manipulation drives had changed too. They weren't breaking physics anymore. They were working with it, using the new flexibility that reality itself had created. Humanity's impossible ships had become merely unusual. 1 month later, Diana recorded her final log entry about the crisis. The price of progress wasn't the destruction of reality, as we feared. Instead, it was change. We forced the universe to evolve, to become something new, something that could handle our dreams of bending reality. The aliens still call us reality breakers, but now it's almost a term of respect. We're the species that taught the universe how to change. As the Lightbender cruised through space, its reality manipulation drive hummed with new harmonies. Through the view screen, Diana watched stars shine with slightly different colors than before, following slightly different rules. A reminder that progress always comes with a price, but sometimes the price is worth paying. The universe had learned to bend instead of break, and humanity, the species that had caused it all, had become its guardians. Not because they were the most powerful or the wisest, but because they were the ones who dared to dream impossible dreams, and in doing so, taught reality itself how to dream along with them. In the depths of space, reality continued to adjust to its new rules. And if you looked very carefully, you might see that some of those rules looked suspiciously like the plots of old human science fiction stories. After all, in a universe that had learned to bend, nothing was truly impossible anymore, just improbable enough to make life interesting.